We really did it. Turned 26 and got our first home. Always wanted a big bedroom. And the kitchen. Yeah, buying a home is a big step. But with the right bank and the right loan, it's so much easier. You know, the minute I saw it, I knew this was the home for us.
Smart people choose a home loan carefully. And they choose a smart bank. First Star, where the people are Main Street friendly. And the advice is Wall Street smart.
This is CNN.
For America's beleaguered cities, were the Los Angeles riots a blessing in disguise? Can a financially strapped United States really afford the massive urban aid that's needed? Or will it be too little, too late? Does a racially polarized society really have a commitment to correct the underlying social problems? Welcome to Newsmaker Saturday. In Washington, I'm Bob Franken. Charles Bierbauer is off today. Those questions for three mayors participating in today's Save Our Cities March in Washington. Raymond Flynn of Boston, Xavier Suarez of Miami, and Kurt Schmoke of Baltimore.
From Washington, this is Newsmaker Saturday with Charles Bierbauer.
Suddenly, improving American cities had become such a political imperative that the Republican president and Democratic congressional leaders found it necessary to declare a political truce. In the rubble of faraway Los Angeles, Washington, for now, had decided that bipartisanship might be worth trying. All were offering combinations of investment incentives, job programs, housing programs, loan programs. But as the long, desperate mayors of these cities made very clear, very fast, they were still being shortchanged.
There's miles apart as to where we have to go.
We need not the pittance that the president spoke of in his meeting the other day. That is woefully inadequate. And I think that what's necessary is that we be listened to as mayors who are on the front line and know what we need.
Suddenly, President Bush made several visits to the front lines. Day after day, being seen in or near the impoverished urban areas he had seen little of until now.
Beyond our urgent emergency aid, we have got to take action to bring hope and opportunity to Los Angeles. But it's not just Los Angeles. It is to all American cities.
On Thursday, the House of Representatives passed hundreds of millions in emergency aid, most for Los Angeles, some for Chicago. Meanwhile, the administration's long-ignored urban advocate is forced to defend the president.
I'm speaking right now for President Bush and say this to you, Don. I'll guarantee you, this is not a one-shot deal. I'll guarantee you that his heart, his soul, and his intellect and all of the emotions that I saw come out in him and in the last 2 weeks are wrapped up in this issue. It's not going to be...
You know how that's going to get measured? By the follow-through. Not by how strongly he feels about it, by what he does about it.
So the political histrionics have already started. Mayor Flynn, we'll start with you. You are the chairman of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. You make the point that the differences between what the mayors say they minimally need and what they're being offered by Washington is huge, huge difference. Is it really too little, too late?
Well, I think what we're seeing is a reaction out of necessity coming from Washington. I think Washington officials are responding to the Los Angeles riots, where it wasn't the Los Angeles riots that created this uncertainty in American cities alone. It's been 12 years of neglect on the part of Washington officials. And what the mayors are looking for is a comprehensive solution of dealing with the problems of social and economic injustice.
The mayors are looking for $35 billion.
$34.8 billion, put people back to work.
But I mean, we have limited resources in the United States these days. Isn't that unrealistic?
Bob, we could at least get a down payment. I mean, even we spent a great deal of time through the Conference of Mayors and through many other forums to try to develop a plan that was realistic and recognize the existing budget problems. The president always talks about things. I remember his first, in his inaugural address, he talked about having more will than wallet. But that's just not the case. A couple of days ago, the House was talking about authorizing $44 billion for 20 B-2 bombers. All that we have said is let's begin to talk about this existing budget and about moving money and targeting it on some very pressing urban needs. We don't need I mean, we'd love to have the $34 billion right now, but we've given them a plan, a realistic phased-in plan, and yet we don't even get a conversation around that.
Well, we're sort of evading the point just a little bit, but first I want to talk to Mayor Suarez in Miami. Mayor Suarez, your city is one of those, one of many that has had severe racial problems over an extended period of time. What good is money to correct that underlying ethnic difference that occurs in so many cities?
Well, for example, in the African-American community in Miami, the big need, the big deficiency is any monies for capital formations for small businesses to get started. They don't have inheritances, they don't have any cousins or friends who will lend them money, and if the federal government doesn't help us a little bit, people won't own their own businesses, and so they'll basically be looking for jobs working for others. They won't own their own homes either, and it'll all be high-rise rental tenement houses, which when you have any kind of racial confrontation, those are the first things that people don't feel like they ought to protect.
But Mayor,
so
what good?
We need empowerment.
But what good is money to overcome what is really the underlying problem, racial and ethnic prejudice?
Well, if you get any money for affordable housing, and people, as they're beginning to do in Miami, own their own condominium, their own apartment, their own home, you see how they feel part of the system, and they care about it. And the same with businesses, and the same with education. The U.S. mayors have made a very, very high priority, for example, of making sure that all kids that are before preschool that need preschool care have that subsidized by the federal government. It's a $10 billion price tag. I think we can afford it as a nation. I think with $1.5 trillion in federal budget, we can afford to make sure that all kids reach the first grade in the ghetto, in the inner city, and are not behind already in nutrition, in understanding and academic preparation, and the environment that they have been in.
Mayor Schmoke.
Yeah, the key for us is to eliminate in major parts of our city this abiding sense of victimization and hopelessness. And the money does help. It helps put people to work. It helps to house people. It helps to educate people. And so as we are working on these problems of economic justice, we can also then empower the individuals, make them feel better about themselves so that when they're dealing with others, we don't have these same sorts of tensions.
But look, there is a prevalent point of view that in fact the money over decades is wasted. It is wasted in a bureaucracy that doesn't seem to really accomplish anything. It's wasted in programs that reinforce poverty, the welfare programs we're all familiar with, school systems that don't really work in spite of millions upon millions of dollars.
You know what that is, Bob, really? That's right, White House rhetoric that doesn't really want to accept their responsibility.
But
look,
are you arguing that in fact these programs have been successful?
Head Start working, of course it works. It works, it's very successful. We have infrastructure needs in cities all across America. We could put 1 million people back to work almost immediately, fixing up our roads, bridges, sidewalks, libraries, schools. These are jobs, decent paying jobs that could stimulate the economy, bring a sense of pride and respect and dignity back to the American people, and it would stabilize American cities and families. Those are jobs. Those aren't make-work jobs. Those are projects that we need in order to be a strong, healthy, competitive country. That's what we're looking for money to put people back to work, to get economic justice in our cities so people feel good about themselves, good about their families, good about their cities, good about their country.
Well, look, the Bush administration argues, and the Republicans argue, that jobs are really in the United States the responsibility of the private sector.
Well, yes, I know, except the big problem is that they've been giving an awful lot of incentives to the private sector to move those jobs out of the inner cities. So, I mean, the government hasn't been a neutral player in all this. And what we are saying is that we're not asking them to refight the war on poverty. We recognize some mistakes in the past, but we also know that there were a lot of successes. And so we've come up with a very targeted program that deals with the kind of investments that Mayor Flynn was talking about. And we know we can put people to work through those investments, and they're going to pay great dividends for years to come.
Well, let me again get back to Mayor Suarez, and again I have to point to your city as one that has a very volatile racial situation because it's so multifaceted. What good would money do to overcome the attitudes?
Well, one of the things that makes Miami a particularly complex city in racial confrontations and the way people perceive what they're getting and what they're entitled to is, of course, immigration. And we haven't even had the federal support for the policies that are set by the federal government of absorbing people into the United States, and we don't even get the money for the basic health care, for the basic education. Let me add to what Mayor Schmoke and Mayor Flynn have said, that, for example, as far as the middle class and the upper middle class, they get substantial federal support by way of tax deductions when they own not only one home, but they own 2 homes, and you get both of those. You get to deduct both of those from your tax payments. The working class is entitled to some support from the federal government to also be able to have the American dream of owning their own home. And another federal program besides Head Start that has worked quite well, of course, is the SBA, the Small Business Administration type loans for small businesses. If we could energize that with substantial amounts of money, you'd see a lot of minorities and a lot of inner city people begin to start their own businesses and feel that they're part of the American system of free enterprise, and then they would be the private sector.
Can I, Bob, you sort of got us on in a little bit of a box in the way that we faced when we went up on Capitol Hill, when people tried to make this issue just a budgetary issue. And what we've tried to do is broaden the debate to say that there is an emergency in this country. There is a crisis. There is a problem that's that addresses the national security interest, that's in the national security interest of this country. That is, if cities fail, if they continue to be weakened, then the whole country is weakened. And we've tried to broaden that to make the problem appear to all Americans as the same kind of emergency as the SNL crisis or the Persian Gulf, and in that way try to get a response that says not what will the budget agreement let us do or not do, but is it a crisis? If it is, let's address it and solve it. And that's what we think we need to do.
We have to take a break now, but there are also some political realities in the United States. One of them might be that this is a temporary interest in the cities that will be replaced as the Los Angeles riots fade from our memories. We'll cover that all in just a moment.
The country mouse and the city mouse. There are opportunities close at hand, and Merrill Lynch mutual funds to help you grasp them. But there are advantages in venturing farther afield. And to help you manage the risk and explore the world's possibilities, Merrill Lynch offers a wide choice of global mutual funds. The moral is to expand your rewards, expand your horizons.
Before investing in any luxury car, may we suggest you do slightly more than kick the tires?
A lot of the ideas that come into Pip Printing look pretty amazing, but thanks to our Look Smart Desktop Publishing, they all go out looking pretty amazing. Desktop Publishing, one more reason Pip Printing's the biggest business printer in the world.
Big news, all Goodyear Eagles are on sale now. Save big on every Goodyear Eagle Performance Radial. Act fast and you'll see why we say the best tires in the world and in your neighborhood have Goodyear written all over them.
For a while, the law didn't exist. Now some LA gang members are getting overdue justice. Plus, what should presidential candidates look for in a running mate? On CNN's Capital Gang, 7 Eastern tonight.
There's some cynicism that the interest in cities that has been sparked clearly by the Los Angeles riots will be sustained in a town that is very politically fickle. Are you worried about that, Mayor Flynn?
Well, I think it's tragic that it has taken a riot in Los Angeles in order to get the attention of the presidents of the United States. It should be known that we have been trying to have a meeting with the presidents of the United States for 1 solid year. That's the mayors of America. We still welcome the opportunity to meet with them. We would be willing to drop everything to go to the White House or go wherever to explain to him the serious crisis that American cities are facing. This is an emergency situation. If it's right to bail out Russia, then why isn't it right to help the people in the cities of our country. So, Mr. President, on behalf of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, we want to meet with you, we want to work with you, we want to build a strong America, and building a strong America, you have to build strong cities.
What do you think is the motivation here? Why has he not seen you?
Well, it's hard to suggest what it is, because we've met with Republican senators, we've met with members of the Democratic leadership on both sides of the aisle, the House of Representatives, Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Foley, Mr. Dole. I mean, we've met with just about everybody to try to bring the concerns of America's cities, but for some reason, the president won't meet with us.
Without ascribing this motive to the president, because I certainly have no insight into it, it is a political reality that the political power in this country does not rest in the cities. Those who are poor are not the main people who vote. That is not the political place to place your money.
That's our big worry, obviously. The mayors that came together and put together this package for the city, Republican mayors, Democratic mayors. Right. But as we look at the national leadership, a big worry is, do all the leaders think that votes are coming solely out of the suburbs and the rural areas, and that cities can be written off politically? If they think that way, they act at the peril of the country, because the cities are really the heart. I mean, that's where all the opportunities and are, and so many people work in there. You can't just let them die out. But again, just as you said, politically, I think that there is a strong sense in Washington of, let's try to cut a deal, get something that looks good, and relegate this urban issue to the ash heap for a while, and maybe we'll get through November. But we got a long summer coming up, and I don't know what we're going to do.
What happens if that's what happens? Mayor Suarez, suppose that in fact this is finessed politically and then it's put on the back burner, as Mayor Schmoke said. What happens?
Let me tell you, one meeting that we had in New York was called by Mayor Dinkins, and I think we had 35 mayors of the largest cities. And the figure that was stated there was that we represented metropolitan areas with 40% of the entire U.S. electorate. I don't know, of course, there is a trend towards the suburbs, and as stated, the suburbs are quite interdependent with the cities. In Miami, of course, we have the downtown in the inner city, and there's all kinds of interrelationships. You have to. We had that situation when the L.A. riots took place, where I spoke to my counterpart in the county, Metropolitan-Dade County, as to the possibility that we would have some violence or some civil disturbance in the greater Miami area. That's a 2 million person metropolitan area, and it really, all of it is quite interrelated and politically a part of a whole that I think that our national legislative officials and executive officials better be attentive to as the summer does begin.
Well, let me just ask all of you, getting back to the question of, is throwing money at the problem really what needs to be done here? Let's use urban schools as an example. As you well know, in many cities, urban schools, public schools, are a disaster, in spite of huge budgets, not necessarily because of the problems of poverty, at least entirely, but oftentimes because of huge bureaucracies, unwielded bureaucracies. They could probably be run for much less, and the money could be better used.
See, what the problem here is, of course, why there's such an exacerbation of the problems in America's cities. The economy certainly is having a tremendous effect.
But the economy is having an effect everywhere, not just in the city.
And then state cuts. You have to acknowledge the fact that state cuts are coming at American cities. And we have lost about 75 to 80% of our funding from the federal government in key programs over the past 10 years, particularly in the area of affordable housing and programs that move people out of poverty. We have more poverty now. We have more homeless. We have more street people. That's all as a result of neglect on the part of the national government. But that's why there's so much uncertainty and so much frustration in the cities across America. We need to send a message to our people: hope and economic justice.
But you also have, among other things, horrendous crime problems, problems that are so noteworthy that people are abandoning the cities. People with the wherewithal are abandoning the cities left and right. They live in fear of their lives, in spite of the fact that you all have police departments that are supposed to keep the peace.
Well, you know, when we have all these terrible underlying social problems, it's very difficult for the police to deal with it by themselves. We can sit here and go around and around on the logic of which came first, the flight and the depression of the economic depression in the city, or the crime. But the point is that what we have given to our national leaders is a roadmap, a way out. We have, the U.S. Conference of Mayors has sat down over a course of a few years and said, here's the answer. We're not asking for a replay of the old system. We're asking for a partnership. Don't rain money down on us, but simply work with us in a very, very targeted way.
Where we go from here. That's
Correct.
where it is. No finger pointing, no political blame. The march is over. We're going back to our cities. What we're asking for is the President and the Congress to work with us. Where we go from here, let's make cities strong, healthy, vibrant once again, places where people can be proud of.
Well, let's, by the way, talk about one of the current trendy approaches. It's actually an old one, of course, and it's enterprise zones. Everybody's talking about enterprise zones. Are they really worthwhile?
Not by themselves. No, I mean, you can't just create an enterprise zone and assume that now that you've got the zone that all of a sudden all these wonderful, marvelous things are going to happen. But it's one part of a partnership. It doesn't happen to be high on our list of concerns, but you know, obviously, if they did enterprise zones, we would welcome them. But there has to be a whole network of programs, and we talk about putting people to work. And we have projects that are ready to go within 90 days.
That's the key issue. That's the number one issue that the mayors across the country, I'm sure that the mayor of Miami would agree with us. The number one issue with the mayors, in order to bring strength, vitality, pride and dignity. Pride and dignity. See, that's what this march is about. This march is not about politicians or mayors. This is about pride and dignity back to American cities.
And Mayor Suarez, you in closing.
I'm very skeptical of enterprise zones. The idea, I guess, for the most part, from the federal angle, is to give some sort of a cut in capital gains taxes and federal corporate income taxes. And I don't know a single small corporation that would benefit from any of that. We need some actual substantial help, as mentioned before in the program.
Mayor Suarez, thank you very much in Miami. You have the last word. I'd like to thank you also, Mayor Schmoke and Mayor Flynn, for being with us. We'll be back in just a moment.
Behold the passion and pageantry of the noble warrior within. Armed with a snapper recycling mulcher mower with its 2x2 split level blade. 2 blades for the way up, 2 blades for the way down.
Their Ninja 2x2 blade cuts every blade of grass who knows how many times. It's also handy that I don't have to take the time to beg. Looks like I did. Snapper. Anything less just won't mulch it. Now pay nothing down and no payments until October.
Behind this umbrella stands an independent agent representing the travelers, your partner in insurance protection, providing you with insurance and investment expertise and a commitment to customer service, meeting your individual and business needs with a customized package of products and services, open in case you want the team that delivers. The Travelers and its independent agents. You're better off under the umbrella.
Risk. As hard as it is to live with, it's impossible to live without. At Merrill Lynch, we know that risk can be dealt with. It can be managed. It can even be turned to your advantage. To do that, you need a partner. A partner who understands it and can help you turn a world of risk into a world of opportunity. Merrill Lynch. We're bullish on the future.
So, you're going out and about after this, huh?
Stand by, on air at 5.
Yep. Hey, let's take a closer look at the lakeshore this evening where things are loosening up around the edge. Not the boat. A restaurant? A boat. We'll be seeing you tomorrow. That's it for me. See that boat down there? Yeah? Well, there's someone very special waiting. Ah, so you're going out and about in the boat? Yeah.
Later tonight on Capitol Gang, the guest is Senator Harris Wofford, Democrat of Pennsylvania. That's at 7 p.m. tonight. And tomorrow on Newsmaker Sunday with Frank Sesno, a discussion of the death penalty. Guests include 2 people who each lost a child to a murderer. One believes in the death penalty, the other one does not. That's Newsmaker Sunday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern here on CNN. And thanks for joining us on Newsmaker Saturday. I'm Bob Franken in Washington.
For a transcript of Newsmaker Saturday with Charles Bierbauer, send $4 to Newsmaker Saturday Transcripts, Journal Graphics, 1535 Grant Street, Denver, Colorado, 80203. Or call 1-303-831-9000. Your comments may be sent to the same address.
The Crow and the Pitcher. How can you increase investment returns? Merrill Lynch has a mutual fund strategy that may help. Pick one of our funds you think holds promise. Then systematically invest the same amount time after time. More shares are added when the price is down, fewer when the price goes up. The moral is, a consistent approach may raise the level of your reward.
So with this flavorizer system, right, you can just put the food in and walk away?
Hey, that's the beauty of cruise control.
Genesis, the Weber of gas grills.
Big news. All Goodyear Eagles are on sale now. Save big on every Goodyear Eagle performance radial. Act fast and you'll see why we say the best tires in the world and in your neighborhood have Goodyear written all over them.
Throughout the world, women want family planning. Yet culture, tradition, religion, even government stand in their way. The exploding population of the people bomb. Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern on CNN.
Hi, everybody. How's your weather? Here's Steve Coast with details.
Hi, everyone. Here's a look at our forecast weather map for Saturday afternoon. The weekend is here, and it looks absolutely splendid in the west. A lot of sunny skies there. Matter of fact, a warming trend the next couple of days into the interior sections, even into the Rocky Mountain states. Pretty strong cold front moving across the Dakotas. It will move into the face of some very moist, unstable air in the upper Mississippi Valley. And this afternoon, just like yesterday, we could see some large thunderstorms in portions of Kansas and Nebraska back into Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. So keep your eye on the sky if you live in that area. Some strong storms. We don't think they'll be severe, but there's always the possibility. Eastern Texas and Louisiana. Sunny conditions in the southeast and the northeast. We'll begin to see the clearing skies after a little rain this morning. Forecast high temperatures today show the temperature on the warm side in most of the southern states into the 80s and even some 90s in the southwest. Cooler readings into the northeast, 60s there for highs, 60s also northern Rockies. But by tomorrow, this huge pool of 80s expands into the Rocky Mountain states. It's forecast time for a couple of cities in the U.S. and Canada. Hope it's a terrific weekend for you. The news continues here on CNN.
Thanks, Steve. The hour's top stories in Health Week are coming up when CNN Weekend continues.
Stained glass, beveled glass, etched glass. Stained glass overlay can put